Well, hopefully all of you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We are now starting with NFL fantasy matchup as we head. Actually, week 12 has already started, and so we had two decent games, one boring evening game. And so, Jed, Jimmy, welcome.
Morning.
Hey, good morning.
Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, before we start, our NFL, let me just actually go to the NBA real fast about a situation I was dealing with. All right, so I play in this other league of individuals I've never played with before. Here's a trade that went through yesterday, and tell me if you would veto it. The guy receives Donovan Mitchell, Zion Williamson, Giannis, right? These three
Oh, wow.
all-star caliber. For Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond, and Derek White.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah, you got to veto that.
Yeah.
So there's no veto button on this one. So this was where I was frustrated. There's no veto. So I emailed the
Commissioner. Yeah.
commissioner. I said, hey, look, I mean, there's no veto button, but I actually would say this trade is a little unfair. So I got in trouble because then this guy emailed the other guy saying that I want to veto. So I get a message from him saying, why are you vetoing my trade? If you veto this trade, I'll keep vetoing your trades. I'm saying, but it's lopsided. It's completely lopsided trade.
Yeah. Yeah, even if you take Zion out of it, given that he's on IL.
Giannis alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was just one of those guys for all three, maybe. But I can't understand. The guy just must not know what he's doing.
Giannis for Joel is a fair trade. I totally would agree with that.
But no, I don't think so. Giannis for Joel. I mean, I wouldn't make a big stink about it, but yeah.
Yeah, because if you had a lot of shooting, and for Joel, you just needed someone with rebounds to get you rebounds and blocks. Joel will be it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. Huh. Yeah. That's weird. I've never heard of a no veto. Like every league I'm in, you can veto the trades. So that's weird.
Yeah. So that's my thought for a day. Okay, let's switch over to basketball as well too. Reflections on the game. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you know who's doing really well fantasy basketball-wise? We could talk about that. Jordan Poole for Golden State Warriors. That guy's really good.
Interesting.
Yeah, I picked up a couple of really good people. Jordan Poole is doing amazing.
Little inconsistent as well, too. The concern is what happens when Klay Thompson comes in. Jordan Poole then switches over to the sixth man, though he plays with the second unit.
Yeah.
And they're also, I mean, he's going to be the third guy in the rotation. Iguodala is the glue that holds everyone together. So is Draymond Green. But then Jordan Poole eventually by next year will be your third leader. And then now Wiggins is expendable.
Wiggins has been great this year, though.
I keep forgetting Wiggins is there.
Man, Wiggins has been really good this year, though. Yeah. He's finally, I think, found his groove. So I don't know. I don't think you can get rid of that guy.
But the concern, I mean, the thing is, what happens when Klay Thompson comes? It's been 2 years they've now played with Klay. Does he go back to his 24 points a game? And then where does that leave everyone else?
Yeah. That's a good problem to have, though.
It is a good problem. The Warriors have been so good, amazingly so good this year.
Yeah. I actually had I had a team member from my workplace who left to take another job, and I was so upset. But then I found out he took a job with the Golden State Warriors. So
really?
I was like, that's pretty cool. And this is the season to do it, right?
That's different,
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I've told my wife the one job I would think about going to is if the NFL or the NBA essentially had a head of research department role open. That's something I would consider.
And Jed, honestly, if you ever get a chance to go SF and go to Chase Arena, it's worth going to. It's a very, very nice arena. When I sit there and look at their Jumbotron and how big it is, and I go to the United Center, I said, wow, it's double the size of the United Center's Jumbotron. You're essentially watching a huge screen on TV.
See, I hate that, though, because to me, if you go to the live game, the point is to watch the guys live.
Yeah.
So it's just weird, to go to a stadium to watch it on the screen. I don't know, it feels strange.
All right, let's go over to NFL as well, too. Out of the 3 games, look, I mean, the Buffalo game I enjoyed it because Dawson Knox got me 2 touchdowns. But other than that, Trevor Siemian was boring. The whole offense was boring. Out of the two games, which one did you enjoy? Was it the Bears, Detroit? Was it Dallas? Jim, I'll start with
No,
you.
for sure. I think that how about this? I think I was more interested from a fantasy perspective into the Dallas game, partly just because when CD Lamb came out, the two people I picked up on the waiver wire this past week was Tony Pollard as well as Cedric Wilson. So my big thing was, okay, how do I see them do well? And actually, both of them had pretty decent games. Even Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas had a pretty good game as well too.
Yeah, no, Pollard, we've been talking about Pollard for weeks, but Pollard was great. That touch, and then you got an extra kickoff return touchdown, so that was really nice. But if you watched, I just felt like he has so much more pop than Ezekiel Elliott. And Elliott obviously is working off of that injured knee. He got, a little bit of a sprained knee there, so that's a factor. But Pollard he's just one of those guys. He's, to me, Pollard and the guy up in Minnesota behind
Madison.
Yeah, Madison. Those to me are the two best number 2 backs, and if they get a chance anywhere else, they'll be a number 1.
Pollard actually could have had a bigger day. There were a couple
holds
got called back for penalties.
Yep.
So he could have had a humongous day actually yesterday.
Yeah, and then also I was going to say Michael Gallup had a good game too. He had over 100 yards.
Yeah.
I think Wilson looks like the better receiver compared to Gallup, except that he drops too many passes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like he gets open more, but he drops them. Whereas Gallup, he catches everything that's thrown his way. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
Tom, how much did Prescott end up with yesterday? Because I think he had a pretty good day, right? Yeah.
The only concern I have with Prescott is the second game now. He started off slowly, and halftime. 7 points, 8 points.
Yeah.
I mean, and he really came on, but that's the same thing that got him in trouble last week. He does not start off well.
Yeah. The other guy from that game, I don't know if you guys picked, was Desean Jackson on the Raiders.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh man, he had such a huge impact on that game. Even though, like, I think he still had over 100 yards, but he had 2 defensive pass interference penalties that basically scored them a touchdown. So he's become a huge part of that. I think that is, to me, one of the big waiver wire pickups is Desean Jackson.
Yeah. Hey, Jim, just to let you know, you are on mute. If you can mute yourself as well, too. Jed, just to also let you know, whatever you're pressing, we keep hearing a lot of scratching noises.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Hey, in terms of, let me see, a couple of players. Going to the Chicago Bears Detroit game. Jim, let me ask you again. Josh Reynolds was formerly a wide receiver with the LA Rams under Matthew Stafford. He caught 3 of 5 targets for 70 yards and 1 touchdown. As we head into playoffs and we look into waivers, is he someone you're thinking about? Because there really is no wide receivers. DeAndre Swift is down. There's no one on that team.
No, actually, I was really considering him because of his connection with Jared Goff. And if you remember, before Van Jefferson came in, Josh Reynolds was the 3rd receiver that they targeted. And they actually had some pretty good games, especially towards the end of the season. So what I can see is, especially depending on how long DeAndre Swift is out for, I can see him actually having some good fantasy potential because you've got him, Jamal Williams, and Hawkinson. I don't even know who's the other. They don't even have any other receivers, right? For Detroit,
no one that's really good.
No. Yeah. So I mean, from a fantasy perspective, if you need someone from the waiver wire, I would say he would be somebody you might want to target. So
yeah. Hey, Jed, Jamal Williams. It looks like DeAndre Swift exited the game with a shoulder injury. It's the same shoulder that he injured, which took him out for a few weeks. Jamal Williams, would he be a priority ad as of this point right now for you?
He's an ad for sure. I don't know that I call him a priority. I mean, we got to remember Detroit was playing the Bears, and so they were able to pick up some points, but there's just not a lot of points to go around in Detroit. So I do think if you're running back needy, he's definitely an ad. I don't know that I'd push him up to say like he's, a number 1 or a priority ad.
Yeah, I think even last year, I mean, he did decent, right? He'll get you a good 8 to 10 points, but he hasn't ever really exploded as that featured back. He's always been like the 1-2 back, and that's my hesitation. If Jared Goff is your leader and your quarterback, you're not going to get a lot of rushing yards from your running back. And I don't think they have the line to open up those holes for Jamal Williams as well, too.
Yeah, the other thing I'll mention, just as an example, in the Bills game, did you guys notice that Matt Breida is the second option, and I like Breida a lot. So he had one touchdown reception. Do you guys remember his days in San Francisco?
Yeah.
This guy had a couple huge games, but and the other thing is, compared to Moss and Singletary, they actually sat Moss. Moss was a healthy scratch. That's how much they like Breida. So I would not be surprised if you see Breida's uptick. I mean, I actually played him in one league. Continue to see that. I think he's going to continue to rise for this last few games.
So Jed, let me tell you how much you helped me yesterday, because I was watching the waiver wire and I saw a Jed Lamb pick up a Mike Breida. I was like, why is he picking up a Matt Breida for? Like, he's only supposed to score 2 or 3 fantasy points. And I started looking at the last few weeks, and I'm like, you know what? I think I was looking at Yahoo. Yahoo is not caught up in terms of projected fantasy points. And I'm like, Mike Breida's really come on. So I picked him up in 2 leagues yesterday, and it helped me. He scored, 13, 14 points?
Well, yeah, he had the touchdown at the end.
So I was like, Jed, thank you. Good job. I was like, what's he doing out there?
Hey, off the topic, you know which 2 players from the old days that got picked up? Miami picked up Phillip Lindsay from waivers.
Yeah.
And Tennessee Titans picked up Golden Tate.
Oh, I didn't see the Golden Tate.
Tate, and threw him on the practice squad.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Who else? That Miami picked up 2 people, Phillip Lindsay, and they had somebody else that they had. Let me just double check.
And while you're checking, Jed, let me talk to you about the Chicago Bears. All right, they barely squeaked out a win. All right, Matt Nagy has been in the news all week of potentially getting fired after this game. But 2 players I want to look at. One, you have Darnell Mooney, who had 123 yards. And again, this long catch. Disappointingly, no touchdowns, though. But David Montgomery, poor play continues. Thoughts on both those players?
Yeah. So first of all, Mooney, I thought he had a great game. I mean, if you watch him, he didn't get a touchdown, but consistently got separation. Consistently was winning the one-on-one battles. I think you had a question, Tommy. You were going to ask us, like, who are some young players we should be thinking about for the keeper leagues, other than the obvious, the Najee Harrises of the world. I think Mooney is one of them. He is showing physically he can win those battles. This is a guy that if I'm in a keeper league, I would not hesitate to keep Mooney. As far as the run game, again, I think the Bears line has just not been opening huge holes, so it's hard to really totally fault David Montgomery, but the Bears rushing game has not been there, and so it's tough to count on any of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, in our dynasty league, Darnell Mooney is sitting there. I wasn't about to pick him up, but in the last couple of weeks, I'm seriously looking at Darnell Mooney over Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, well, I don't know about over Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I still think Calvin Ridley still.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, did you notice your wife made your wife's trade proposal to me? I didn't know if she asked you about that. She had a pretty big trade proposal to me, trying to get Kyler Murray and Kyle Pitts.
Did you accept it?
No. I countered. She offered. Yeah, I countered. She offered. I forgot who she offered, but I offered her back Mike Williams and DK Metcalf for, I forgot who the other 2 were, but anyway, I was trying to, Oh, no, I offered her back Kyler Murray and Mike Williams for Jamar Chase and I think Justin Jefferson, I think.
Got it. Yeah. I'll have her take a look at it. Look, she's in 10th place. She needs to be collecting good players for next year. That's the one thing I told her.
Yeah, it was an interesting offer. I mean, it's definitely big name players. So
And I've been offering Jimmy defensive players because we, for some reason, our league only has 50 moves. I'm at 49 out of 50. All right, so I need to save that last move.
Wow, you have 49. Yeah.
See, I said that at the beginning of our season that we need to bump that number up. I thought that number was too low.
Yeah.
Maybe I should ask the team if we could bump that up.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We should just
bump it up. I don't think it'd be fair for you to ask. I mean, we could
like mid-season. Yeah, maybe not.
Well, mid-season, and especially if it benefits you, because I think. By the way, Duke Johnson is the person Miami.
Nice.
Practice squad. Yeah. So.
Hey, a couple other things, Jim. I will go with you. Romandre Stevenson added to Thursday's injury report, as well as Damian Harris as well too. are you thinking about even starting any of those guys? Romandre Stevenson, who had a great game, and Damian Harris. Now, if one of those guys sits and the other one plays, I would say yes. But at this point, with uncertainty, what do you think?
No, I mean, I was just actually I was reading both of them because I have both of them in a couple of my leagues, and so they still practice. They just had very limited practices, and so I think they were thinking that most likely they're still going to play. It'd be great if one of them went down though, because right now with the shared running back by committee, neither of them are doing really well, and both of them actually have the potential running from over 100 yards and catching, both Romandre Stevenson as well as also Harris from New England. So I wish one of them would go down, but I think they're still going to share it this week.
Yeah. Hey, Chad, with New England playing Tennessee, they just signed Golden Tate. A.J. Brown is injured, chest injury, avoided a serious injury. Is he someone that you're going to plan on starting?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to throw to someone. So, I think it is somebody to take a look at. That game is so interesting to me too, by the way. The Titans at 8-3, the Patriots at 7-4. I mean, this is really a battle for kind of the top potential seed coming out of the AFC. So this is a really important game, but the Patriots are 7-point favorites. And so that tells you something. Las Vegas is really seeing that the Titans are on the downward trend, and the Patriots are really trending up. Their win streak has been really strong. They're making a push for that number one seed. So I expect the Patriots to play really well here and to win out. But again, with the Titans, they got to get offense somewhere. So you got to figure out where that's going to go.
I do think that the Titans are going to keep it rather close because Mike Vrabel, who used to play for New England, whenever he plays the Patriots, he does figure out how to keep it close. But you're right. In the past, if they don't have receivers, all they did was give it to Derrick Henry and tell him to run that ball. Well, this year, they don't have Derrick Henry or any other receivers. And so you're now hoping that Ryan Tannehill can manage the game and win. But Ryan Tannehill, the problem with Tannehill is he's prone to make mistakes, and Belichick is going to capitalize on those mistakes.
And last week, Tannehill was awful. He had 4 interceptions last week. He was awful.
5 interceptions, yeah.
And what does he do well? Belichick does well. He centers on the superstar, stops the superstar, and challenges everyone to beat him. Well, your only superstar is A.J. Brown. Before you had A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. So now A.J. Brown was a chest injury. You stop him. Who else is going to be there?
Is Julio out still too?
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Julio's still out too?
Julio is out. Yeah. So who's been
the only thing that you could hope to do is have the defense continue to really be able to stop Mac Jones, and then from that point on, try to limit the amount of times that they're on the field.
Westbrook Ikeen is the one that's been leading them the last couple of games in receiving yards, and he is nothing. He is not good.
Yeah. Hey, a couple of injuries. Chase Claypool dealing with turf toe injury. Aaron Rodgers. Oh, look, he's always in the news. For some reason, every time Aaron Rodgers comes on, he always says something that puts his foot in the mouth. But he does have turf toe, not in his big toe, his planting toe, but probably in one of his, it looks like his smaller little pinky toe or something like that. He has a turf toe. And then Aaron Jones is a game time decision. But man, if Aaron Jones does not play, we're going to see more and more of A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, I actually have Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and I think I might end up playing both of them, even if Aaron Jones plays, because even if he plays, you got to assume they're probably going to have a lower amount of carries. They'll probably manage him a little bit more. So, but Dillon looks great. I mean, I think if you've got him, you can definitely start him.
Yeah. Antonio Brown.
I was also thinking.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was also thinking that if Aaron Rodgers does have that turf toe, they're going to try to limit his mobility and his movement. And so what's going to happen is Aaron Jones and AJ, they're going to run the ball a little bit more, and they're going to make Aaron Rodgers just stay in the pocket. So I think you're right. You're going to see them running the ball more during this game.
Couple of other injuries. Antonio Brown will not play this week, probably next week. Elijah Mitchell, again, limited practice with the finger. Marquise Brown returns to practice. Logan Thomas returns to practice. Lamar Jackson practices. Cordell Patterson misses practice, and Kareem Hunt practices. Jed, any of those thoughts on any of those players that we went through?
The Cordero Patterson, that's a concerning one because I've got him starting in one league, so I want to see that he is definitely going to be playing. And then the other one, Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown. I mean, that's hopefully both will be in and be able to play. Those are that's a big game they're playing against the Browns. I expect them to play well. It'll be interesting if Baker Mayfield is not able to play for some reason. But the Ravens, I expect them to win that game.
Yeah. Hey, as we look at young players, if you have a dynasty league or someone that you're just really high on, Jed, I'll start with you and then go to Jimmy. If there is a young player you're saying there, man, you really need to look at him. He may not have done exceptionally well this year, but man, he really has high hopes. Who would it be?
So I was looking, that was a great question, by the way. And you're asking like who for keeper leagues, absent of the obvious ones.
Yeah.
And so I think one of this, I was just going position by position. So to me, at the quarterback position, I think an interesting one to think about is Jalen Hurts. Now, we kind of were down on him early and the Eagles haven't been playing that well. But if you look at him from a fantasy perspective, he's been a clear top 5 guy because of his legs. And so I think Jalen Hurts is an interesting one that you may not have thought about. Again, at the quarterback position, which you can argue about whether or not you should be keeping anyone at the quarterback position to begin with. But I think that's an interesting one. Another one I'll mention that is obvious, but you might be concerned about him, which is Kyle Pitts. So I think Kyle Pitts he's been right at the edge of top 10. So he hasn't been as good as we had hoped. But I think the thing about Kyle Pitts that really told me that this is a guy I'm going to keep, Bill Belichick, as you talked about, he said when we played Atlanta, the one player they were going to take out was Kyle Pitts. And so it tells you that even as a rookie, defensive coordinators were planning against this guy. So I think it's just taking them a little bit of time to figure out how to use him. But clearly the talent level is there. And so I think Pitts is a guy that I'm going to hang on to.
Yeah. Jim, which other players are you looking at?
You know what? So here's the thing. I'm intrigued by – here's 2 names that's a little bit out there. I'm intrigued by Tony Pollard, right? I'm intrigued because partly with Tony Pollard – if Ezekiel Elliott is not going to be the running back this year, Pollard is already going to be vaulted to be number 1 running back. So I can see him being like the Austin Eckler of next year's fantasy or fantasy in 2 years. And so he's somebody for me that I would really want to try to figure out how to keep given my roster. So he's one other person. The other person I'm monitoring that might be somebody I might want to really consider is Elijah Moore from the New York Jets. And so I've been trying to get him from Tommy the last few weeks because he's got him on a couple teams. But Elijah Moore's actually come on. And so for me, if I look at him and he continues his current pace and production, he's actually somebody who I think he would be a pretty good second or third receiver in my fantasy if I kept him. So those are the 2 people I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. Because all of us will say Trevor Lawrence, all of us will say Jamar Chase, but Jalen Hurts has come on. I mean, he is the number 1 ranked quarterback this year. I mean, you can't deny it. And then also a lot of times Elijah Moore, only a couple weeks that he's been really good, but let's see how well he does. What do you guys? Oh, go ahead.
The other name I'll mention with Jalen Hurts is Devonta Smith. Yeah. So again, he took a little bit to get going as well. He's sitting just outside, I think, the top 15 wide receivers right now. But again, looking to projecting, I think next year he could be top 10. So another guy that I consider holding.
It's ironic, isn't it? Everyone thought Waddle was going to be the number 1 receiver over at the Miami Dolphins, but man, it ended up being Chase. Devontae Freeman, and then also Devontae Smith, and then also now Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
Jim, just to let you know, it looks like a lot of times with you're maybe 1 second lagging behind us.
Okay.
Hey, what about let's go to older players. Who is the older players that has traditionally been on your keeper league that you're saying there, man, I'm going to drop next year because of potential? Is it an Ezekiel Elliott? Is it an Aaron Jones? Definitely Chris Carson's on that list. Who is someone that is older that has always been on your dynasty list that you're probably going to get rid of this year?
So I'll start. I mean, I think an easy position to start there is the tight end positions. If you look at the tight end positions, we've always said, right, Kelsey, Kittles, they were at the top. We would always just drive them consistently. I think Kelsey has shown he still is that. He's still the number one guy. Kittle's, because of injuries, dropped down. Mark Andrews had a little bit bounce back year, so he's back in that number 2 slot. But I think tight end position is one where there's a lot of young guys you can think about over the veterans, because that top 10 landscape really changed a lot this year.
Yep. Yeah. Jim, what about yourself?
For me, Saquon Barkley, I think if I had a Saquon Barkley, I would consider dropping him. Part of it is just the fact that he's so injury prone these last few seasons. And honestly, for me, I'm like, if I have to keep a Saquon Barkley and not be able to take one of these new, younger running backs, I feel like I would have made a mistake, because these days the shelf life of these running backs are not that long. So Saquon would be one of those people I would consider dropping.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you guys, Henderson, Darrell Henderson, is he someone that you guys will keep, or is someone that you would just not even keep on, bother keeping on with Cam Akers coming back?
I would dump him, just partly just because Cam Akers is coming in, right? And so for me, don't use up a spot for Henderson when Cam Akers is coming in. Same thing with Devontae Freeman is the running back for Baltimore, but that what's his name is coming down.
Dobbins, J.K. Dobbins is coming back.
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins is coming down the road, right? So those, I wouldn't, if one of those really good running backs is coming in next year, I wouldn't even try to keep some of these guys.
Yeah. Jed, Romandre Stevenson has shown a lot of potential. Is he somebody that you would look at, especially if you find out that they are dumping Damian Harris?
Oh, yeah. If they dump Damian Harris, then definitely. Even if they don't dump Damian Harris, I think Romandre Stevenson is good enough that you might consider taking a flyer on this guy. Again, it depends on your keeper league, how many you get to hold. Like in our keeper league, you get to hold 5. So I think with 5, that's a little bit tough. But if you're in the 6, 7, 8 keepers, then I think Romandre Stevenson is a definite.
Jim, what about Deebo Samuel? Has he proved enough to you where you said this guy is going to be a superstar? I'm going to keep him in my dynasty.
Yeah, surprisingly, yes. I think at the beginning of this year, if you remember where he was drafted right in the latter rounds. And part of it is everybody was working off of the year before when he was injured. But I think especially with Shanahan as his coach in San Francisco, they figured out how to use him. And he's actually been really good fantasy production, like really well. I would say in the top 10, the top 20. So I would say that if I had the chance to keep him, I would keep him.
I'll give you one name, a veteran name on the wide receivers, Mike Evans. Mike Evans has had a great year, but I could see the argument for dropping him, just given age and given, there's so many wide receivers to feed in that offense. He's had an amazing year. But I don't know if you guys saw in one of our leagues, somebody dropped Mike Evans. So I could see the argument for that from a keeper. Yeah, I think in the Walter White League, someone dropped him. Someone picked him up for like $100. They spent like $100 to get him.
Yeah. Here's one that I want, at least we debate about this all the time. If you had to keep one of these guys, would it be Antonio Gibson or David Montgomery? Who'd you guys pick?
Gibson. I think he's a lot more potential than Gibson. Yeah, Gibson would.
Jed, you disagree?
It's tough, mainly because of offensive scheme. I think Montgomery actually, I like Montgomery's skill set, but just with the Bears, I don't know though. I'm going to stay Montgomery because if they can figure out this field situation, I think the offense could be better in Chicago, and Montgomery could benefit from that. I feel like Washington right now is a little bit lost.
Well, so here's my argument for a Gibson, right? Okay, for instance, they're going to go after a quarterback this year. Let's just say that they decide they're going to go all in and get a Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson is the quarterback. Then you've got Gibson as the running back. That's a pretty good duo. That's a better version of Montgomery and Fields. And so for me, I'm picking the what if situation, because I do think they're going to really go after a really good quarterback. And so I think that will elevate and help Gibson. So that's why I would choose him.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great, if they get a strong quarterback, then that's the key. But, I guess the question is just if they can do that.
Look, I've had a lot of Antonio Gibson, so I watch a lot of Antonio Gibson this year. All right. The problem with Antonio Gibson is if he's the early down back, if he does really well, they'll keep playing him. But if he struggles, they immediately take him down out of the third down, and he doesn't play a lot in the second half, and then suddenly McKissick does. So you're sitting there, he's not getting the touches. So you're just banking on the fact that if he does well, then you'll keep playing him. That's been the struggle with Gibson, especially with his shin injury.
You know what? That's actually a really good point. I still remember there was this graphic that came on last year with Antonio Gibson. And so I think it was maybe like a Thanksgiving game. Remember when he scored like 3 touchdowns in one game or something like that? Well, he started with five rushing yards. Then he had like 20 rushing yards. But the third and fourth quarter, I mean, he exploded, and that's where he scored the touchdowns, if you remember that game. So I feel like I think that's pretty true. He's the type of person who starts off slow and then he does really well. But if you keep taking him out and become inconsistent, because you're seeing that McKissick also has a number of rushing yards and garnering some good fantasy points. Gibson doesn't operate that well. He's going to have to be a workhorse, and you're going to have to take a chance on him.
Yeah. Hey, a couple of as we wrap up, a couple of players I want to talk to you about cryptocurrency that continues to drop down, and also have one more final NBA talk as well too. Jed, I'll go with you. Here's a player that I want to look at. Dontrell Hilliard led the Titans backfield with 82 yards on 15 touches last week, 8 catches. They cut Adrian Peterson. What do you think about Dontrell Hilliard?
Yeah, that was interesting. But the thing was, Hilliard, they signed him off the practice squad, which is a good thing. But who was it that was coming off of injury that's actually going to get the carries, not Dontrell Hilliard?
Is it McNichols?
Yes,
No,
McNichols. So McNichols was out. So I'm looking for McNichols to take the carries that Hilliard got. But I do think it's that's why they let him go, because they trust Hilliard so much. So even if McNichols isn't back, they still have that backup. But watch that situation closely, because that's where I think those carries will go.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you have Deontay Foreman, you have Jerry McNichols, and now you have Dontrell Hilliard, which makes an older person like Adrian Peterson. Now you're disappointed by Adrian Peterson, who now leaves as well too, and is cut by the team. Jim, give me a case for Cam Newton being your starting quarterback over Tyler Heineke, over Daniel
Jones.
Daniels, yes.
Yeah. So I can, because I'm playing him. So this is what happened. I have Kyler Murray. Murray's out for this week, right? And so my backup was Ryan Tannehill. And after last week, I was like, I'm not playing Tannehill because they're going after the Patriots. So then I was left with three options. Do I go for a Taylor Heineke? Do I go for a Cam Newton? Or do I go for the Derek Carr? Now, out of the three, if I looked on what happened last week, I should have gone after Derek Carr. But I decided to go after Cam Newton. Part of it is just because he scored 30 fantasy points last week. He can beat you with your legs. He can somewhat throw. He's playing against a pretty weak defense. And the other thing, right from a story standpoint, I can see a story being played out where they said, this guy was dumped. He wasn't playing. He came back to his old team, and look at how well he's doing. So I'm taking a chance. I'm taking a chance right now on Cam Newton that he will finish off strong from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah. Jed, I realize I did not ask you this week about your weekly waiver wire picks, but so before I go to a couple games, can you give me your weekly waiver picks? You know what?
Yeah,
here
weekly
I am.
picks. No worries. Yeah, I'll do a couple really quick. So the Bucks are playing the Colts. The Bucks, of course, are favorites in that. The Bucks are 7-3, coming off of a win. The Colts are 6-5. I like the Colts in this game. I think the Colts can upset the Bucks. I think the Colts have been, if not for a couple last second losses, the Colts would be really at potentially 7-3 or 8-3 potentially. So I think the Colts are a really strong team, and they can win that upset. The other game I'll pick is the 49ers and the Vikings. If you've been watching, the Vikings have been really coming on these last couple games, and so the 49ers are 3-point favorites, but I like the Vikings in that game as well.
Yeah. I have a feeling you know how they're going to stop Tampa Bay. They're going to keep running Jonathan Taylor so Tom Brady does not get the ball. You're just going to run it all day.
Yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, I think the Colts are a super dangerous team. I hope they make it into the playoffs because they'll definitely make some noise in the playoffs if they can get there. Strong defense, strong running game, and you know that Carson Wentz, if he gets going, along with Pittman, that's a tough team to beat.
Hey, speaking of defenses, all right, with the LA Rams with some of the defenses struggling as well too. The Colts against the Tampa Bay defense. Would you play them this week, even though they're playing Tampa Bay?
Um, ugh. Well, you can, yeah. I mean, that's not too bad because you can pick up at least some interceptions potentially. But if I had a different option, I think I might consider that. I mean, the Bucks offense could just explode, and a lot of fantasy leagues, once the other team scores more than 25 points, you start getting negative points. So I think I would consider elsewhere if you can.
Jim, let me go over to Chargers versus Browns. 6-4 Chargers against the Broncos, not Browns, Broncos 5-5. Cortland Sutton just received a new 4-year, $60 million contract on Monday. What do you think about Cortland Sutton? Also, the Chargers have allowed the third most fantasy points in tight ends this year. What do you think of Noah Fant?
Well, let's start with Fant first. I do think Noah Fant is up there with a Dawson Knox. So I anticipate Noah Fant to score at least one touchdown. I think he's going to do at least 40, 50 yards receiving. So I do think from a fantasy standpoint, he's going to have a pretty decent day. Cortland Sutton is a struggle, right? Like if you look at his anticipated fantasy points, it's usually up there. It's like 10 to 12 points. But the last 3 weeks, he struggled. He's had 4 fantasy points in each of the last 3 games. So I was actually really surprised that the Broncos decided that they're going to sign him to a long-term contract. But what I've seen is John Elway isn't always the best at talent evaluation. So they're going to look back on this and be like, why did we do this? I'm still playing Cortland Sutton just because I do hope that there's going to be a breakout game because he's had slumped for far too long, but I'm not really hopeful. Right, I'm more hopeful for a Noah Fant to do well in this game.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you there, Jimmy, and actually say the person I think I'm hopeful for is Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy is coming back. This is his second game back. I think they eased him in last week. I look for Jerry Jeudy to explode in this game. I'm thinking over 100 yards, and he'll be the one to get the scores, not Cortland Sutton.
All right,
it's funny because for some.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say for some of these receivers. Like if you've noticed, ever since Jeudy came back, Sutton has not done well, right? And usually for some of these receivers, they're hoping that if you have 2 receivers, it will alleviate the pressure off of one of them. And they usually will do better when their partner comes back. But Sutton only does well when he's the guy. If there's anybody else coming in, he doesn't ever do well on that.
Hey, going back to the heyday of the Denver Broncos, remember the days when they had Emmanuel Sanders, who actually did do well who did decently well for Buffalo this week, and Demaryius Thomas back in the days. Oh, man, those were the days.
Oh, Demaryius Thomas was awesome for a long time. Yeah, he was really good.
Hey, let me ask you guys a question. If you guys, here's my dilemma. If you had to pick one of these players for a flex, who would it be? James Robinson, Elijah Moore, or Elijah Mitchell?
Ooh. I like James Robinson just because of the carries, but I think that's the guy that I go with.
Yeah. I choose the same thing. James Robinson would be your guy.
Got it. Hey, as we wrap up, I wake up this morning, I see crypto continue to go down. Thoughts on that? Insight on that?
Buy the dip, jump in.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Yesterday, it went up by $3,000, right? And I was reading an article. They said, why did Bitcoin and Ethereum go up? And they said, it's because all these young people were sitting around for Thanksgiving. They had nothing better to do. So they were sitting there buying crypto, and it drove it up. And all of a sudden, now that the stock market is back up, it went back down. I mean, it dropped last night by $2,500. I think it's at $3,000 right now. I actually thought about last night. I was like, oh, I should sell it. It went up a little too high. I should make some gains off of it. But I didn't, and now it went back down.
Yep. Last thing is that we wrap up as well, too, and all of us go off because hardly anyone's working today. Black Friday, it's not what it once was. but as Black Friday and Cyber Monday, is there one thing you're looking at that you're saying, I want to get this Black Friday or this Cyber Monday?
So the two things I'm looking at, my parents need a TV, so I'm going to be buying them a TV. And TVs are one of the great things to buy on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You can get, it blows me away that you can get a 50-plus-inch TV now for like $400.
Yeah.
Because I remember my first 50-inch TV, I think I paid $3,000. So it's like insane. The other thing is I'm getting the Apple AirTags. Those little air tags that you can connect to things, because my two youngest, they don't have phones and I need a way to like track them. And so I'm going to get those air tags.
Well, what's an air tag?
So it's a little disc that basically it's like a GPS system, and you can throw it into anything and it tracks where it goes, just like a Find My Phone. And so you can latch it on to something. It's just like Tile, if you remember Tile is another product. But this is in the Apple family. You can get a pack of 4 for $100, and for Black Friday they'll give you a $25 gift card. So you're getting 4 for $75, which is pretty good.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And so, Jim, a lot of the times is I put one in my wallet. Charlene has one of her keys. I have one in my keys. And then my sister-in-law, Donna, has one of her keys. And you just click on that Find My iPhone app, and it's right there. It's versus the Tile, you have to set everything up. But then at the same time, with this Apple one, it automatically reads it. It's great.
Interesting.
Yeah. Jim, what are you looking at to buy?
Well, now I'm going to go buy one of those Apple tags. I never even heard of it. I don't know. Tommy and I, we used to go with a couple friends, and we would wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and we would drive out to Gurney, Illinois, and Kenosha, Wisconsin at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we would shop. And then eventually the wife would keep on shopping, and we had our sleeping bags and our pillows, and we just sat there in the car and just slept. Because we all had youth group right after that. And all the youth group members would come and prepare for Thanksgiving dinner at our houses. And but those were good memories. Those are not the same. Like even yesterday, I was surprised Walmart, Target, all of them closed for Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I think that's great that they made that decision to close on Thanksgiving. But I agree, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, they're not the same. You can pretty much get what you want online. So the days of going and getting in line, it seems like are over.
Hey, the one thing I'm getting from my wife is a speaker for her classroom. Look, my wife, a lot of times, I'm sitting there, Charlene, what are you doing? She says that she had to play a movie for her first grade class for Thanksgiving, but her speaker was very silent. It's not working very well. So she put it in the middle of the classroom and had all the kids huddled around there listening and watching TV. And I'm sitting there, just buy yourself a Bluetooth speaker. But she didn't know where to buy it. So that is my goal, to get it for her by Monday.
Hey, look at the JBLs. We have the JBL, the one that's like a little tube. Those are really good.
I need something that plays where 30 kids in the classroom will be able to listen to it.
Oh, that'll be plenty loud enough. Yeah, you shouldn't have to spend more than $100.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, their NBA is going on this week. Sunday football. It's going to be a full week as well too. So, thank you very much, and hope everyone had a very, very good Thanksgiving. And we'll talk to you soon.